Today I'm sharing with you two blouses that I made from the same pattern. In this opportunity, I've simplified the pattern for you and simplified the most important technique here that you might be steering away from. No need, because it's so easy in the way I'm going to show you. Here a stripy dolman blouse. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing. And today I'm really excited to share my makes. I have also filmed a sewing technique that will help you, that I know will make sewing this type of garment so much easier. And if you've never tried this type of garment because you are steering away from this type of collar, you won't be anymore after you see how easy it is in the way I'm going to show you. What I'm wearing today is a Sloan sweater, but I made it into like a t-shirt instead because it's ITY. And I did a little hack on the sleeve where it's puffy, it's got gathers here and gathers there into a cuff. So love this. If you haven't seen this video, go ahead and watch. It was up maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago on the channel. I am sharing with you some inspiration for this last day of the sale from one of my all-time favorite patterns from Love Notions. I love it so much, and you will see why. I've made it a few times before already. What I'm sharing with you today is two versions of the Melody Dolmans from Love Notions. I've already made this one before. It is a firm favorite of mine. I made two versions in testing. Coral white and navy version I made in testing, and a stripy one I made in testing as well. That one I no longer have because my mum loved it and I gifted it to her. So she wears that, she loves it, that's good. Later on, I went on to make a really cool dress using this pattern as a base. I got an image from Pinterest of a dress with asymmetric features and stripe play, and I sort of recreated it my own way, and I love that dress, super nice. You know how I like to take a pattern that I love and add more details and make it a little bit more complex just for fun. I did that at the beginning of the year, making a shirt dress based on the Melody Dolman, but I added tons of details like these tabs on the cuffs. I've added pockets with flaps, with buttons, patch pockets. I've done lots of top stitching everywhere, and you know how you can take a pattern and make it a tad more complex. Love doing that too. In this opportunity, it's gone the other extreme, which is making it simple, simplifying the melody. If you haven't made it, you are missing out. It's a gorgeous pattern. It's so classic. You could make this and wear this for a very long time. It's a style that is just always being worn. It's super easy to sew. The collar style is the feature that I mostly love. Super easy to sew because it's got dolman sleeves, so it's basically shoulder seams, side seams, and then the collar. It's got a shirt tail hem, a curved hem, and it's long enough depending on your height that you can tie it up at the front without any modification to the pattern, so that is an option. And it looks really cute. It's really nice option. It's designed for woven fabrics. You can make it in a variety of woven fabrics depending on the style you want. If you choose cotton, linen, it'll be more structured. If you choose a rayon or a rayon linen blend, it'll be a bit flowier. I have made this in lots of fabrics: crepe, cotton, rayon blend, tencel twill, linen, you name it. I've made it because I've made so many already. And in this opportunity, I've made two. I made one in a cotton rayon linen blend, a stripy fabric. I've shown this fabric already in a recent video where I share fabrics and pair them to patterns. The idea was trying to recreate the stripy version I gave my mum. I love that stripe play and the way it turned out, and I just wanted that for myself again. Although these stripes are different and the fabric is different, I think I could get a similar type look because I really like it. The other one is black. It's going to be a staple. I don't have a top like this in black, and it's a rayon linen blend. 70% rayon, 30% linen. It makes it super drapey, super soft, looks like linen, and it's heavier than just the plain rayon. So beautiful for this type of design. This pattern hasn't been yet updated to improve sizing up to 5X. So currently it's in the sizing of extra small to 3X. With a bust of 49.5 and hip of 51.5. There is nice positive ease in this design. It's not a fitted design, so you will have space to move around and breathe, and there is a full bust option in this pattern included. It is longish. It's meant to hip sort of the full hip at the curved hem at the back. I will link to all the videos I have made. If you want to see exactly how I cut out the stripy version in the past, You can see my first video because I have done it exactly the same way. For this version I'm going to show you today, there is an extra back seam, center back seam. There is an extra seam on the upper collar, the collar that is interfaced. That one also has a seam. So if you want to see how to do that, if you want to recreate something like this with a stripy fabric you might have, look at that video. Now, I have been making these types of collars for a very long time. They are really nice and easy to make. Not that they're easy, they're not hard either. I would say they're an intermediate type skill. And in the pattern, you will find a clickable link that will take you to a video tutorial done by the owner of the pattern company of Love Notions, where she shows you how to do it. This is the front. So you will have the front facing of the shirt that is integrated into the same pattern piece. So this is just folded over. There's no seam there. So you have that, and that reaches up to the shoulder seam there. And then on the inside, you have the inner collar. This inner collar is not interfaced. There is an area there where it joins the shoulder seam, and in that area, you need to snip into the inner collar and fold it in. And then you top stitch around there or the base of the neckline here, or like me, you can hand sew it down. So it takes a little bit of precision. You have to be super precise with where you cut it, where you snip, that it does match the shoulder. Sometimes when you manipulate your garment, if you haven't stay stitched, things might not match up and you might end up with a little hole in there. I've done that in the past for sure. For now, I'm experienced. I know how to do these. You know, it's not an issue, but it is a technique that is a little bit lengthy, and it just makes the process a little bit longer. And so I've always known there's a way to skip all that snipping. I'm always a fan of trying to not snip into fabric if possible. If there is another technique, I would love to just sew the technique that doesn't involve snipping into places. And there is one, and it's perfectly valid. It is a legit technique. I have not invented it myself. I have sewn it before. It's included in lots of patterns. I started sewing this as a teenager from probably Berta Style magazine, had this technique. My great aunt, who mentored me when I was little, she also showed me this technique. So I want to share it with you. Super easy. You will be sewing these collars in like 5 minutes, I promise you. I made both of my shirts in like probably 3 hours tops, including the cutting. So, you know, if you get the hang of this new technique, you will be so happy. You will be making these collars, and you can get a closet full of these types of shirts because it's so easy. And you can apply this technique not just to the Melody Dolman, but to any pattern that has this camp style collar. So let's have a look. It's super easy. You're gonna like it, I promise.
Start to wear me. You've been raining down like hail. I'm weak.
This is the back piece of the Melody Dolman. You cut it on the fold. This is the upper area, the neckline, and then the shoulder. And I have wanted to draft the facing to make the collar construction so much easier. There'll be no snipping into the inner collar. There'll be none of that business. It'll just make it super fast and easy. So I have drafted a facing. You would usually draft just the half, and it would just be the exact same replica of the shape. There's nothing special here. I just put a paper behind it, traced around there, made sure the edge of the paper was against this edge of the paper. And then I got this facing piece from the front, which is actually an integrated facing. It's part of the whole front. It's just that I've decided to separate it. You can see it has a width there. I just made sure that the width of the facing here is the same. So just check whatever size you're making, you know, the length that you have in this area. Make sure the facing at the back is the same. So I just measured that, marked it on my paper, drew it, and then I have half that you would cut on the fold. My personal preference with facings is to create an extended piece. It's just more accurate, I find, when you place things on the fold. Sometimes you get a bit excess there just on the fold of the fabric. So I've created a whole piece. I will cut a piece of fabric, I'll interface that first, put this on, cut it out, and I will have a facing piece. This is a little facing piece I have cut out of my fabric. It's already been interfaced before I actually cut it out, and that ensures it keeps the shape and the size and everything. You will find that if you cut interfacing pieces separately and then fuse them on, your facings shrink, and then you wonder why they won't fit the neckline. So having an extra facing at the back here is not going to be bulky or anything, you know. It'll just make the collar go in super fast and easy. I have my stripy shirt here. Shoulder seams have been sewn, side seams have been sewn. It's a dolman type, so it's extremely easy to do these first steps. Ignore the center back seam. It wouldn't be there if you're making this normally. I've added a center back seam to do this stripe play business, but otherwise you would have the back on the fold. I have gone and interfaced all this central area there. I believe the pattern just has you interface this area partially. I'm old school and I like to just interface the whole thing. So that's been done there on the centers. And I have serged these ends here. This is an integrated facing, so it's super easy to construct. Other patterns have a separate one and you have to have an extra seam on the center. This one doesn't, so it's extremely easy. So I've serged those ends. This is the facing that I drafted based on the back pattern piece. It's exactly the same. We're looking at the shirt wrong sides out. This integrated facing that has been interfaced, you're just going to fold it like that. You have that on both sides. And you have these seams here that will match the shoulder seams afterwards. They have been serged separately. You're going to take your facing piece exactly like this, in this shape, put it right sides together to that one, and you're going to match them up here at the shoulder seams. Remember, we made sure that these were the same size when I drew the size and the shape for this back facing. Remember, this back facing is not part of the pattern. This is an extra pattern piece that will just make putting in the collar super easy. Up on the top, where the separation is from the interfaced area and not interfaced area, that is actually the center of this neckline right there. So we'll just put a pin there. Do the same over on this side. And when you do this, you can see that now your facing extends all the front area up to the shoulder seam. But because we've added this extra facing for the back, it also involves the back. What this means is that all you need to do now is grab the collar that you've already put together, two separate layers. One of them is interfaced, the other one isn't. Ignore the fact that my interface side has a center back seam. It's just because of the stripe play I'm doing. Otherwise you would just have a normal collar. One is interfaced, one isn't. And this is going to be sandwiched in between the neckline and the facings there. Once you align everything correctly, it will just be one seam from here, from this center all along the neckline to the other side, and that will catch the collar in between and it will give you a super clean finish. You won't need to snip into any of the inner collars and all that other things that you need to do when there's no facing on the back. I'll show you the details of how the collar goes in there at the sewing machine. Okay, I hope you can see all of this. You can see that I have just sewn these little seams. I'll just finger press this open. It's easy to do with this type of fiber. And I have all this space in between. This is the neckline. I have the main shirt under here and all the facing bits on the top. I have these pins here to mark the centers. This is where the interfacing finishes. As I've shown you before, you can see that's the interfacing there, that is the center. So just pin it there. I've marked my center back here on the facing. This seam I have on the main shirt is my center back. That is a good reference point, but if you were sewing it normal, you would need to mark it as well. And now I have my collar piece. This one that I have a seam on is my interface side. This is my non-interface side. So what I need to do is grab it just like this. And what's actually going to be touching here when I put this in between is the non-interfaced collar will be touching the main neckline from the shirt, right sides together. And the interface side of the collar will be touching the facing. So non-interfaced with non-interfaced, interface with interface. That's the way the collar needs to go inside. And now it's just about matching these center seams and then pinning all the way along And you will have a little piece here that doesn't have collar, of course, because that's how it's gonna look on the center. And it's just about pinning, 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 matching the shoulder seams of the facings with the shoulder seams of the actual shirt. And you'll see at a point here that you will get to here where there is a mark. You can see that mark there on the pattern. That's where the collar should reach, up to there. So if you've cut everything correctly, if you've blocked views, if you've stay stitched your neckline, you know, you're not going to have discrepancies. When you find discrepancies and you find that this has grown, if you didn't stay stitch here, this might be longer and your collar might not reach your notches. So I would suggest just taking those little precautions. You can see this is all the area I have to pin from this center over here, and the same thing will happen on the other side. So I'll just pin off camera. That's really boring to watch. Show you how it looks all pinned, and then we're just going to go ahead and sew all that 3/8 seam allowance, and that's pretty much it. Then it's just flipping it to the other side. Okay, so I've just spent some nice quality time pinning carefully, making sure all the raw areas are matching in there. These seams are matching those seams. That's why you see that pin like that, same as there. It's all good. This looks crazy right now, but it'll make sense. So it's just basically sewing from there to there, 3/8 seam allowance. Once you get the hang of this, making a shirt with a collar like this takes no time at all. It's so neat, so clean inside. Make sure at the bottom that the shoulder seam allowance is going towards the back. I'm always worried about those details when I'm going to sew these seams like that. That seam allowance pointing to the back as well. Okay, that was sewn. I'm going to go ahead and trim the seam allowance a little bit. I think 3/8 is a little bit too chunky. I won't trim it that much, but so you see what's going on here. When you flip this, this is what you're going to see. The collar coming out from there, coming out from there, and this would be what you would have in the shirt originally, but without the facing you would have needed to clip into there and fold under and do all these other extra steps. Sometimes that's what makes it lengthier. Now it's all clean because there's this facing there. After trimming seam allowance, snipping into there, I went ahead and serged the edges of the whole thing, the whole facing. It's just one piece now, all the way to the bottom. What I want to do now is understitch this back neckline. So from the seam there of the facing, all the way to the other seam, right there, just that little section. So I'm going to pull all the shirt this way, and just have the seam allowance underneath the facing, pointing to the facing, and I'm going to understitch. This presser foot helps me do it super neatly. This will be visible when you look at your shirt or you have it on the hanger, so it's nice if it's nice and straight. So there is that seam there. I'm going to start there. This is pretty bulky. There are a few layers here, so I have a longer stitch length, 3.5. There's a seam allowance under there. That's it. The shirt is all here. And here's the other seam. That's all I want to do. I don't want to go further. Okay, so that little stitch has been done. What this does is just bring that facing down. It just helps it lie nicer. And now what I'm going to do is baste by hand this facing down, because I do want to top stitch, but just the back facing down. I don't want to have it flapping around like that. I think that could be uncomfortable. I have been having some fun pressing all this. This fabric is so beautiful to work with. It's so easy to press. You can see that I have aligned these seams right there, and you can see how well and flat this looks once it's all been pressed. So this is a good place for me to just put in some pins. I'm not catching the ironing board underneath, hopefully, but this is a good place for me to actually see how this is actually going to lie. I'll take it off the ironing board after pinning, hand baste it and sew it. I just want this section sewn down, not this section. So you see how beautifully that matches there, that seam matches there. It's all nice and flat, there's no puckers, nothing. So when this is sewn down, this won't bother you when you wear it. It's going to be all flat, it's going to be all soft, and you never have to clip into anything and have all that business there that might seem a little bit complicated. Not hard, it's just that this way is faster, I think. You saw that the only thing you needed to do was draft a facing for the back piece of the shirt. That is extremely easy to do. It's not like you're creating a piece or like having to think about it much. You are just copying the top part, the top shape of the back pattern piece, as you saw, making sure that the width of that facing matches the width of the facing that comes from the front. So you saw that you just compare them, just make them match, sew them on the little shoulder seams, and that means that you will have a facing inside, not only just for the front that reaches the shoulder seam, but for the whole thing. That means that you can sandwich your collar in there. You saw how easy that was to see. I've told you exactly how to put the collar in there. The inner collar that is not interfaced touches the main neckline, and then the layer of the collar that is interfaced is touching the facing of the back that's interfaced. So super easy. If you want to watch it a few times, you will be whipping these up in no time. And it just involves an extra facing there, and it doesn't look ugly. It looks really nice. And it's been top stitched down. It is interfaced with block fusing. You know, I'm a firm believer in block fusing, and if you haven't tried it, you might want to try and see the difference it makes into how your garments turn out so exactly, like there's nothing stretching, or this type of design where you have a notch there where the collar needs to reach exactly. It is possible because of things that we do that things might not match. Mainly the neckline stretching out or stay stitching a little bit too with the tension too high might shrink the neckline sometimes, and then the collar's too big. There's things that can happen, you know, but just be careful. Stay stitch with your normal stitch length, with your normal tension. Don't skip the stay stitching. Block fuse the areas that need to be block fused, and you always have a collar that matches the neckline that you are sewing. This fabric was super easy to work with. I would suggest, if you want to try this for the first time, to choose a fabric that is easy to work with. Some cotton linen blend, anything with a little bit of cotton component is perfect for this style, and it'll be so easy to sew. So that's how it looks on the inside. It's so neat, and you can see that that facing is sewn onto this facing that goes on the front right there, goes all the way down. And it's super easy technique. You don't need to snip into anything. Your collar is intact because it is sandwiched between the facing and the neckline. It's just so easy. I was whipping these up in no time, and even though I was filming and talking for you, please give this technique a go. I have also decided to simplify these blouses even more, and I didn't add the cuffs that are meant to be here on the sleeves. I just decided to hem them. They aren't short dolman sleeves, you know, they are fine. They give me cover like on the upper arm area. I don't think it's too short because I didn't put the cuff on, but that's just optional. The cuff is very easy to put on. I do show how to do that in previous videos. So I've just hemmed it with 3/8 hem allowance. I've just folded it in, hemmed it. The little curve here has been trued for this shape. Like when you look at the pattern piece, there's a little curve like that. The cuff is meant to be sewn onto this edge, but mine isn't. It's just sewn in instead. Super easy. Love this. Extra back seam. I wanted that navy stripe to be there next to this other fabric so that it would stand out more rather than having a beige stripe next to this. Little things I think about when I sew. And in the pocket, I also wanted the navy stripes to be on the edge there, so that when I top stitch with navy thread, you can't really see it that much. You can see the edge stitching at the bottom of the pocket here, but not down there. You can see it there on the top as well, but I thought about those things. The hem is really curved, and you can finish it with bias tape or folding it up twice as per the instructions. I decided to fold mine up once at 3/8 because it just conforms to the curve better. That's what I like. I have made one before where I finished it with bias tape, self-made bias tape. I could have made bias tape with this. I had a piece left, but I decided to leave the piece that I had left to make a tank top instead. If I have enough for a small garment, I would rather leave it for a small garment rather than making bias tape out of it. That's my view on fabric. If I have a piece that will be good for absolutely nothing, then I'll just make bias tape. This is my stripy Melody Dolman. I've got it paired with my glissando skirt, brown linen, some heels. Love the stripy look, you know, different directions, always a nice thing. This is a very wrinkly fabric. Even if I press it, it's still got creases, but that's okay with me. It's super nice, super soft on the skin. Curved hem, small hem. Again, I didn't adjust for my length because I prefer this length when the shirt is worn normally. So when I undo these buttons, it turns out a little bit short when I try the tie front. Little bit short for this look. That's how it looks at the back. I love that seam with the different stripes on the center back. I've got metal buttons. I've got a lovely little decoration pocket there. Stripes going down, and you know, I placed it in a spot where I think it looks nice. Regular dolman sleeves have been hemmed, no cuff. So even in the collar, the stripes are going in the wrong way. You can see it going that way, you can see it going that way, this way. That's why I had that seam on the upper collar, the one that was interfaced, so that it would look different like that. I think it's just a really cool look, and I'm super happy to do stripe play like this. And it's so easy to do, just makes the garment more interesting in my opinion. Maybe there you can see the top stitching that I've done for the facing to hold it down at the back. Nothing too dramatic there. Shirt feels really nice with that facing at the back. Feels like there's something extra, and it just makes this so much easier to sew. So I love this method. I love my shirt. I've made another one, and it was sort of like a last minute decision because I'd already made the stripy one. I thought, hey, I don't have a black one. I don't have any nice black shirt like this. I had a beautiful rayon linen blend fabric in my stash that I bought months and months ago. So soft, so nice. So I went ahead and whipped up a black one. Now I know you won't see the details with this because it's black. It's very hard to see. But I love it. It's the same thing. I top stitched the collar edge at 1/4 inch. I have the same facing inside at the back that has been top stitched down. You probably won't see the stitching line there, but it is super neat. I did the exact same approach of no cuff, so it's just been hemmed normally, and it's got 7 buttons. The buttons I made for both have the same distance between them, 2 3/8 inch distance between them, and they have 7 buttons. You know, my approach to any top that has buttons is to try it on and pin it where my apex is, my bust height. I put a pin right there because I want a buttonhole to be there. You will find that there are buttonhole reference marks on lots of patterns. They probably won't match your bust point, and then you might end up with one here and one there and gaping there in the middle. So I never consider the reference points in patterns for buttons. I just try it on, mark that button that has to be there, and then I'll calculate distance up and down from there. That is my approach, and that's how I don't get gaping fronts with buttoned things. Also, I like to have them really close together, not huge distance between them. This has a flowier look, softer look than the one that you've already seen because of the fabric. It's just drapier and just so nice. I would make more in more colors in this same fabric. So nice to wear. It feels amazing on. And having a dolman top with this type of collar, it just feels more dressed up immediately. You know, I've made lots of simple dolman tops that just have a round neckline sort of thing, but the fact that this is actually a blouse with a nice collar is really nice and I love it. So let's see this one. This is one of my new Melody Dolmans, simplified, no cuffs, same length, same curved hem, different style of collar construction, although you never know because it looks the same from outside, super neat. I've got it paired with one of the skirts that is part of the Sibyl Illusion skirt collection. It's one with an asymmetric wrap on the front and I really love it. Classic black shirt, I'm gonna wear it a lot, it's gonna be a staple. Shirt tail hem, curved. I've done a very small hem allowance to allow that curve to lie nicely. Curves at the back as well. Super like this style for these shirts. I think for it to be tied up, for me, I would need this to be maybe 1.5 inches longer, and I should have adjusted for length, but I didn't, so it will just be worn normally. If I undo the last 2 buttons, this should be able to tie up, and it does, but it ends up being a little too short for me, like too high up here, you know, but still cute, still an option. I opted not to put the cuffs in just to make it simplified. We have the same camp collar, super nice, it's super neat, it's black, of course you can't see it but it's a really nice style. Super happy with my staple black Melody Dolman. Love this fabric, super drapey. Expect to see this paired with lots of things because black is sort of goes with everything that I like to make at the bottom. I like making bottoms that are loud with prints. Black thing always tones it down, so expect to see this one a lot more styled with other garments. So I encourage you to get this pattern, the Melody Dolman. I'm sure you would want to make a lot of these, and now you know a way that can make the collar so much easier, so much faster, and just a really clean look. There's nothing wrong with this technique. It's not like you're cheating or anything like that. It's just a different technique that achieves the same purpose. I have seen this technique around, so it's not like it's a wrong thing to do. It's just easier, and I do hope you give it a go. Today is the last day of the Love Notion sale until 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, so it's not that many hours left. So if you haven't got this pattern, I suggest you do. It's one of my firm favorites. I will keep making it for sure. Maybe if I make them again, I'll just show you them, but I won't like make a video about them. You know, I'll just show them in a roundup because I know for sure I will keep making this. It's so nice, such a nice pattern. Don't forget to use my affiliate link if you haven't got your Love Notions patterns yet. If you do use my link, that just directly supports me and supports the work that I do here, creating all this content. So if you do use my link, thank you so much. I will see you again very soon with another sewing video. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Bye.